Right now, your baby's nervous system is recording everything. Not some of it, not the dramatic moments, everything. The tightness in your shoulders when you picked them up after the phone call, the pause before you responded to their cry while you were still mentally in the argument that ended an hour ago. The way your jaw was set during the 3 a.m. feed when you were dreading the morning. You were present. You were there. You were trying. And your baby was taking notes on all of it. This is not about the obvious moments we label as harmful. The screaming matches, the visible breakdowns, those matter, but they are not where the real wiring happens. The things that shape a baby's developing nervous system most profoundly are the ordinary ones, the everyday ones, the ones you have been doing since the first week home, completely unaware because nobody told you that your baby was reading you that precisely. Here is what the research actually says. The brain your baby arrived with is not a finished product. At birth, the human brain is approximately 25% developed. The most important developmental work happens outside the womb, during the first 3 years of life, in the presence of a caregiver. Your baby's brain is not developing in isolation. It is developing in response to you, to the texture of your presence, to what your nervous system communicates to theirs, moment by moment, in thousands of ordinary interactions that feel like nothing. Researchers at the University of California, Berkeley studied cortisol patterns in infants across their first year of life and found that babies in households where caregivers were chronically stressed, not abusive, not neglectful, just chronically stressed, showed measurably elevated baseline cortisol by 6 months of age, not because anything terrible had happened to them, because their nervous systems had been sampling the environment consistently and the sample kept returning the same way, elevated, braced. A 2014 study from Harvard Center on the Developing Child built on this with a finding that remains uncomfortable to articulate. Chronic low-grade stress in an infant is not primarily driven by what happens to the baby. It is driven by what the baby absorbs from the closest regulated nervous system available, which is almost always the parent holding them. This is called the open loop system, and it is the most important concept in this entire video. A baby cannot self-regulate. Their nervous system does not have the architecture for it yet. The prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for calming the alarm, for bringing the body back to baseline, will not be meaningfully online until the mid-20s. What fills that gap in the first years is not the baby's own system. It is yours. The baby's system is open, designed by evolution to borrow regulation from the caregiver. When you are regulated, calm, and consistent, the baby's system syncs to yours and learns what calm feels like from the inside. When you are not regulated, even when you are performing calm perfectly on the outside, the system receives different information. And the system is honest about what it receives. Now, here is what that means for the 10 things happening in your ordinary day. Phone use during feeding. Not the call itself, the phone in your hand during the feed. Researchers at the University of Edinburgh found that even passive phone use, scrolling, not speaking, produced a measurable change in attunement during feeding. Eye contact decreased. The microexpressions that babies use as anchors for their own emotional regulation simply weren't there. The baby does not understand that you are looking at a screen. The baby understands that your face has gone away. The stress in your voice during phone calls. You take the call in the same room because the baby is right there. Your voice shifts tighter, lower, faster. Researchers at the University of Oregon published a study demonstrating that infants as young as 6 months show measurable cortisol responses to adult vocal stress even when the infants were asleep. The baby is not making a conscious assessment. Their nervous system is making an automatic one. Rushing transitions, the hurried pickup, the fast transfer between caregivers, the speed of putting them down when you need both hands, each is small. Each of them answers the question the nervous system is asking thousands of times per day. Is this world predictable enough to relax in? Rush transitions answer that question a specific way, not dangerous, just slightly braced. And steadiness, repeated over months, is what builds a nervous system that knows how to rest. Inconsistent responses to crying. Developmental psychologists at the University of Minnesota found that it is not the speed of the response alone that matters most, it is the predictability A baby whose cries are answered slowly but consistently builds a different nervous system than a baby whose cries are answered quickly some days and left longer on others. The nervous system can adapt to almost any pattern. What it cannot efficiently adapt to is no pattern. What it does with unpredictability is stay braced. Overstimulation, misread as engagement. You are playing, you are doing everything right. Singing, making faces, rattles. The baby looks away, looks back, looks away again. You bring the toy back, you try a new sound, the baby goes rigid. That gaze aversion is not rejection. It means the system is full, and the only regulatory tool available to them right now is the withdrawal of attention. Physical tension during holding. You pick up your baby and your shoulders are up around your ears. Your arms are positioned correctly, supportive, doing the right things, but your muscle tone is elevated, tight. Your body is bracing from the day that has not stopped. The baby is in contact with all of it, not the thought, the physiology. The tense body holding them tells their nervous system something different than a soft one. The body does not lie to the baby. Premature independence. Putting them down before they are ready, offering space before connection, practicing independence before the nervous system has enough security to practice it from. Developmental psychologist Dr. Gordon Neufeld has documented what he calls attachment hunger in babies asked to be independent before the attachment tank is full. It does not look like clinginess at first. It looks like a baby who is always slightly on edge, even when nothing is wrong. Background television. Not because of the content, because of the sound pattern. Television produces an unpredictable auditory environment, sudden volume changes, emotional tone shifts, sounds of conflict and laughter that arrive without warning. Researchers at the University of Massachusetts Amherst found that background TV measurably reduced parent-child verbal interaction, not because parents intended to disengage, but because the auditory load affected attunement without anyone noticing. Inconsistent sleep environments. Every sleep location shift is a small regulation task. Their nervous system encodes sleep through pattern smell, sound, light, the texture of what safe feels like at rest. The accumulation of disruptions across weeks produces a baby who approaches sleep with low-level vigilance because the context of sleep has not been reliable enough to relax into. And the 10th, the most sophisticated, the most consequential, performing calm while internally dysregulated. You are good at it. You keep your voice level. You make the right face. And here is where it gets strange. Because the right brain communication that Alan Shore has spent 40 years documenting does not care what your face is doing. The baby's right hemisphere, which develops before language, before logic, and which processes emotional information through the caregiver's right hemisphere in a direct, nonverbal channel, is not reading your expression, it is reading your state. Performing calm communicates performed calm. The nervous system underneath it communicates itself, directly, honestly, to the nervous system pressed against your chest. But here is what the research says next. And this is the part that matters most. None of this requires perfection. The nervous system to be concerned about is not the one exposed to stress. Every nervous system is exposed to stress. The one that shapes outcomes is the one never exposed to repair. A 2019 study from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child followed infants through their first 2 years and found that the frequency of misattunement between parent and baby was not predictive of attachment quality. What predicted it was the rate of repair, how often, after a tense moment, after a missed cue, after a feed that happened with a stressed jaw and a distracted mind, the parent noticed, softened, and came back. Made the small bid for reconnection. Looked at the baby's face again. Slowed down. The baby who experiences stress followed by repair learns something no amount of perfect interaction can teach. Connection breaks and comes back. That knowledge, built not from being told, but from experiencing it hundreds of times, is the neurological foundation of resilience. So here is what this means practically. Starting tonight. When you pick up your baby after a difficult moment, take one breath before your arms close around them. Not to perform calm, to actually shift slightly toward it. When you feel your shoulders come up during a hold, just notice it. Noticing changes the state faster than forcing it does. When a feeding happens with a phone in your hand, and you realize halfway through, put it down and look at their face for 30 seconds. That is repair. That is enough. The question is not whether you will be a perfect regulator. No one is. The question is whether you notice, because noticing is the beginning of repair. And repair, repeated in the small moments of an ordinary day, is the only thing that actually builds a nervous system that knows how to rest. That is what your baby is telling you when they go tense in your arms. Not that something is wrong with them, that something is running in the room, in your body, in the space between you, that their nervous system has already found and is honestly reporting back. They are not difficult. They are exquisitely precise. And precision like that, in something that small, is one of the most extraordinary things you will ever hold. If this changed the way you see the small moments of your day with your baby, leave a comment below. The parent reading it at 2 a.m. during a night feed needs to know they are not alone in this. And if you want to understand what happens inside your baby's brain the moment you walk back through the door after hours away, that is the next video. What happens in those first 5 seconds of reunion is not what most parents expect.